how is it that we just were sitting next to each other in California, not even what, 48 hours ago, and here we are now.
I know, it's wild. I can't get enough of you.
Well, I could say the same about you. So there you go. Hey, what's going on? Good to see you.
Hello. Good to see you. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, and one of my favorite names ever, Terracotta Ciabatta, has already put in a question, so that's pretty awesome. You can probably see it there on the side.
Yeah, I can see it there.
Yeah. And just a reminder to everyone, we will do, of course, some general OCD questions, but we will take priority for people who have questions about OCD and substance use here. And so that will be kind of our main area that we will be working on. But please feel free, everyone, to go ahead and make comments, throw out some questions, let us know what's going on.
Absolutely.
Terracotta Ciabatta says, I'm not sure how to readjust my thoughts on sitting with discomfort. You were told how to habituate, but it's still confusing. How do you resist rituals when sitting with discomfort is so hard? Can you explain how this is done? Boy, maybe someone with lived experience, if we only had someone who had some lived experience in this, would maybe answer that. I don't. Do you know anyone at all?
I have no idea. We can ask my dog.
Oh, okay. Let's ask your dog. Let's see.
Yeah, he definitely has OCD. No, so I really I love this question. I think that we don't necessarily have to readjust our thoughts on sitting with discomfort. I have found it really helpful to, instead of always looking at the end goal being habituation, to just look at it as sort of teaching my brain a new way to relate to my fear. And I find that a much more attainable goal than to think, oh my gosh, if I don't do my ERP exactly right and I'm not habituating, then that must mean that I'm failing or I'm not doing it correctly. So I like to, as Terracotta Ciabatta says, delay rituals. Or sometimes I will simply try to change the order of them, or maybe sometimes I will just focus on completely doing ritual prevention. But I have personally, this is just my experience, I don't find it helpful to kind of think of things in the sense of I have to get rid of all my rituals 24/7 and that's the only way I'm going to succeed. I expect myself to do rituals sometimes and to just come back after I do the rituals and start practicing my response prevention again, because I ascribe more to, I guess, a model of inhibitory learning where I'm simply doing the best that I can.
Yeah. The habituation model really is the idea that over time, the uncomfortable feeling will decrease and dissipate, right? And that works for the vast majority of people, but not everybody habituates. And sometimes people then, if they don't habituate, think, oh my gosh, I'm doing this wrong, or something bad about me, or why does this work for other people? So here's the deal. You could be uncomfortable about something for the very rest of your life. That's okay. I'm okay with that if you are, as long as in that discomfort, it's not interfering in your life anymore. You're able to recognize that you're uncomfortable, and you're able then to just be able to say, oh yeah, there's that thing and it's uncomfortable. And I'm now going to move on and go do what I need to do, and not, just focus on the fact that I'm uncomfortable. And it shouldn't be that way, right? Now, the question comes down to, when you are really uncomfortable, how do you not do a ritual? I think that could be similar. I'm going to bring in our substance abuse discussion here. It would be similar to the idea that when I'm really stressed out, how do I not take a drink of alcohol? Right?
Absolutely.
Or have a cigarette, or use cocaine or heroin or whatever. And right? Because That's what lots of people do. When they get to a certain level, they think, I can't handle this, and
Yep.
therefore I need something else to do to help me through this experience. And what I really want to get people to do, and please tell me what you think of this, Alexandra, but my hope for everyone is to get them to recognize that I truly believe everybody has within them the power to be able to handle things better than they give themselves credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sometimes that is sort of at the heart of all of our, sort of avoidance and doubt and our continuing to ritualize is that we are so afraid that we can't handle the consequences of taking a risk. And so maybe we say, well, I can't handle that right now. The fear is too overwhelming, or the disgust is too overwhelming. The anxiety is too overwhelming. So I'm just going to give in and do this ritual. Or just like you said, Patrick, take this drink of alcohol or whatever it may be, because that feels better in the short term.
Hmm. Yeah. So there are so many things that people do that they never thought they would have the ability to do. And imagine if the only way we were able to ever do anything that we never thought we had the ability to do was to do a compulsion, then that would mean that we would want to give everybody OCD so that they could do anything that they would ever want to do, because it would be the compulsion that would be the thing that would be the most helpful thing in the world. But it's not, right? So, terracotta ciabatta, I would say this, you maybe hold on to the notion that being uncomfortable is unacceptable, and you have maybe learned that the only way to dissipate that discomfort is to do a compulsion. And I would ask you to allow for the fact that you can handle that discomfort, even though you may not believe it right now, and you may not have had evidence for it already. But I also don't know that you've tested that to see if it's actually true, right? It's kind of like in virtual reality. If you've ever done VR and you put the goggles on, you're standing on solid ground. But when now I turn the VR on and there's a cliff in front of you, your brain is going to tell you, do not take a step forward, because you are going to fall off this cliff and you are going to get hurt. Even though you know intellectually that there's no way that you're going to fall, because you are on solid ground. You are being tricked by virtual reality. And what I want you to recognize is that you are being tricked by obsessive compulsive disorder. And it is telling you that you have no way out other than to do a compulsion. But the reason for that is very simple. OCD eats one thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that is compulsions. And OCD wants you to do nothing other than to do a compulsion. And if you do not do a compulsion, then you don't feed OCD, and then OCD gets hungry, and then OCD throws a tantrum and now is really loud and wants you to really do all sorts of stuff. But the reality is this: OCD is a big liar, and there's no reason to believe anything that it tells you whatsoever.
150%.
Even though OCD, you will then say to me, terracotta ciabatta, but it feels so real. And my answer to that is always, because it has to feel real. Because if it didn't feel real, then you wouldn't have OCD, because you'd have an intrusive thought and go, that doesn't feel real. And you just move on with your life, right? No, it has to feel real. You wouldn't diagnose with anybody with OCD unless it felt real. So it's going to feel real, but just because it feels real doesn't mean that it is real. So,
That's right.
Kay says, what are intrusive feelings or sensations? There are things that we experience internally that we wish we weren't, right? Any kind of thought or image or urge or some kind of bodily sensation, maybe, or feeling that we don't want or we don't find to be appropriate in the situation that we're experiencing them. And we want to do something to neutralize them right away, to make them go away. That's really what you would look at as a compulsion.
Yes, I agree with that. I don't think I need to add anything onto that at all.
And by the way, feel free to jump around if you see any questions that really
Okay.
hit on to stuff that are fun for you or that you want to get to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go right ahead. I'm going to just kind of go down the list here.
Yeah.
And but before we do that, now that we're in it, we've already hit our person, Mark. So, wow. Just a couple of announcements. First of all, tonight is brought to you by NoCD, which is a platform for the treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder, body focused repetitive behaviors, and hoarding, and is available in 4 different countries: the UK, United States, Canada, and Australia. And in conjunction with the OCD and Substance Use Special Interest Group through the International OCD Foundation as well. And Alexandra and I had the privilege of presenting on a panel this weekend together at the IOCDF conference in San Francisco. And it's at this point that I like to let our special, wonderful guests introduce themselves a little bit and tell all of our lovely listeners what you'd like them to know about you and why you are here tonight.
Oh my goodness. Well, hi, my name is Alexandra, or Alex Reynolds. I'm an IOCDF advocate and I work alongside NoCD as a support group host. I'm also on the marketing team. And let's see, what's a little bit about me? I have OCD. I've had it since I was probably about 4 years old. And like most of us, I would say that my OCD likes to jump around from subtype to subtype. So I'm not married to a particular one. I have a lovely family and live in Atlanta, Georgia. And I am feeling super attracted to this contamination OCD question.
All right, go for it.
My most bothersome subtype. So Layla says, I have contamination OCD. Do you have any tips for how to have conversations with friends and families when they are triggering you heavily with something that they're doing? So I'm going to sort of guess that it's possible that things that are triggering you heavily might be things that folks are doing due to contamination, like maybe you feel that they are contaminating objects or spaces. And I know for myself, I used to feel very compelled to sort of make people stop contaminating things in order to make me feel better, right? Because when they stopped contaminating things and I was able to go ritualize and sort of decontaminate them, my OCD felt way better. And I thought I felt better. However, what I've learned is by allowing folks to trigger me, I'm able to use those opportunities as learning experiences and as ways to practice my ERP. That being said, communication is really, really important, especially early in our recovery. And I think that there are ways to let our loved ones know that maybe we are in our heads or we are really struggling with something without anger or frustration, right? So I may say to my partner, hey, OCD is really loud right now, and I'm feeling like things are a little contaminated, so I need a few moments. Or I may say something like, hey, I'm really in my head right now, and I think I need a break. I'm going to go for a walk. Really depends on the moment and what I'm doing, right? But sometimes just getting a little space, practicing that non-engagement, and being able to communicate that maybe we're feeling some distress can really help.
Awesome. Our good friend Mike Sizemore says hello to all of us. So hello.
Hello, Mike.
Mike's an awesome dude, by the way. Omar says, my thoughts sometimes start with I am. It's no longer a question, but a statement. Yeah. Well, but there's an inferred question, which is what if I am? And the what if has just been dropped. OCD likes to play that trick on you once in a while and maybe just start it with I am, but it's still the same thing. And it's still OCD as I see it. And, I could say to you, Alexandra, I am a dolphin. Would that make it more real if I said that versus if I said, what if I am a dolphin? No, you probably wouldn't believe me to be a dolphin, even if I said I am a dolphin, I'm assuming. So.
No, I don't think you're a dolphin. And I definitely think that OCD can come in a lot of different, kind of types of statements. It doesn't have to be what if. It can be an I statement. It can come in as a command. Sometimes it comes in more as like a movie. I know sometimes I get these intrusive images, right? Like either still photos or like a movie of me doing something. So I think OCD can be anything.
Kelly says, how do I deal with real event OCD? I keep replaying the same scenarios over and over again, and it just keeps telling me I'm a horrible person and don't deserve love. You know, Alexandra, as someone with OCD, has OCD ever said to you, you know, Alexandra, you really are an awesome person and you are so deserving of love and respect. And I hope that everyone around you today just gives you accolades and tells you how just special you really are. Has that ever been a message from your obsessive compulsive disorder once even?
No,
No?
absolutely not. I wish it were.
Wow. Maybe that's the anti-OCD. Just imagine if we had anti-OCD. You are awesome.
That would be
Everyone
great.
thinks you're really cool. Yeah.
That would
So,
be awesome. That would be self-compassion.
yeah, right. Exactly. So, Kelly, um, no one is shocked by your statement, just so you know, that you are hearing this from your OCD. But now comes the idea, just because we hear something from OCD, does that mean that we must believe what OCD tells us? Right? Is OCD the arbiter of truth?
Nope.
Alex, has OCD ever given you good advice?
No, absolutely not. And it loves to latch onto these kinds of real events. I know I have a tendency to ruminate on things that happened in the past and sort of examine them from all different, directions and think to myself, "Oh my gosh, if only I'd handled that differently, I'd be so much of a better person. I'm such a bad person for doing, this thing. Only horrible people do that." And the truth is, the more I think about it, the worse I feel, and also the further I get from sort of finding clarity on it.
Why are you such a horrible person, Alexandra? Why is that?
Nobody knows. I was born.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, uh, I love the unanswerable questions that OCD throws at you, right? You know, and there's a purpose for that, because OCD does not accept answers at all. OCD is absolutely unaccepting of answers. That's why it's called the doubting disorder, because no matter what answer you give it, it's going to say, yeah, but what if maybe, that kind of thing. So, Alexandra, in your history of OCD, how many times have you given it an answer and it said, "Oh, thank you, I'm good now. I'm going to go away. It's been nice knowing you, and you have now fulfilled everything that I've wanted to know."
Oh my gosh, I wish. Never, never, ever,
Never? Oh,
ever. I
okay.
mean, it's never satisfied, right?
You are younger than, maybe you need another 40 years or so of talking to OCD, and then it will finally say, now, Alex, you have finally, after 40 years of this, given me all of the information that I want.
I have so many doubts about that. I do
Really?
not think that that's going to happen.
But Alex, OCD tells people there is a way out. If you and therefore, if there are thoughts that are unacceptable, there must be a way to only have acceptable thoughts, right?
You could be dead.
I think that'd be the only way. You'd have no thoughts, is what it would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I don't have OCD, and I don't define all of my thoughts as ever being acceptable whatsoever. So,
Yeah.
how much punishment do I deserve over the fact that I have thoughts that some people would say are unacceptable? What should we commence some stoning, or throwing of sticks, or unleashing of locusts upon my house, or things of that nature? What pestilences and plagues and punishments do I deserve for the fact that I have unacceptable thoughts, and I don't have OCD beating me up over the fact that I experience them?
Well, the funny answer would be all of the above.
No.
The the serious answer would be, everyone has yucky, gross, morbid, taboo
Liar.
thoughts.
There's There's of course people who don't experience those. What are you talking about?
Yes.
That's got to be a made up in the false news media lie that everybody has these things. There must be someone somewhere out there that is only purely thinking at all times.
Okay, well, you find them and let me know when you do.
All right, I'm on a quest.
But
I've
yeah,
been
I
looking
mean,
for them for 23 years of my career. I haven't found them yet, but
we
damn it,
all have
I
them.
bet they're out there somewhere.
We
Just
all
gotta.
have yucky thoughts. I'm gonna challenge your statement. We all have yucky thoughts. The only difference is those of us, excuse me, I'm still like in California right now. In my mind, in my body, and as evidenced by the bags under my eyes. But we all have these thoughts. People with OCD, we have the wonderful luck to get stuck on them and to ruminate on them and to dive into the content of them endlessly. And then the more we pay attention to them, the more stuck they become. And the more we believe them, the more like a crappy person I think we feel. And we have this tendency because we think that our thoughts must mean something about us. They must indicate, something about our values or who we are as a person, that we shame ourselves. And, the only difference between Dr. McGrath and I is that, I may have a thought about killing my dog and I get stuck on it forever and think that I need to separate myself from my dog, maybe give him away because I have OCD. And Dr. McGrath would probably laugh it off and move on with his day.
I don't even like dogs, so I don't mind that you have that thought personally. I mean, whatever, So, I mean, I'm neutral to that thought. No. So yeah. Look, when someone could take a thought like that and make a funny out of it, versus when someone thinks, "Oh my gosh, what if this were true or serious?" Right now, why have that reaction? To show you, there's three potential reactions right off the bat. There, oh my gosh, I should give my dog away, or totally neutral, or hey, that's a great idea, right? I mean, but not for the reason that you want to do it, just because someone might not like dogs. So there's so many ways to answer things, OCD being one of them. But again, I'm not noticing that on job applications we're saying to people now, in order to have this job and be successful, of course, as you know, you must have obsessive compulsive disorder. So if you were to rate your level of OCD on a 0 to 10, what would your level be? And let's say you said an 8. Oh, I'm sorry. We only take 9 or 10 level OCDs here at this job. That's how much OCD one really needs to be successful. Well, that would be ridiculous. Imagine that in a job interview, right? We would never say such a thing. And yet OCD throws itself in and says, well, I'm the reason you're a success. You only do well because of me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and the thing, it's so paradoxical, right? Like OCD doesn't actually make us feel better or do better, even though it tells us it will. It makes
Right.
us feel worse.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah, let's see. You want to grab one?
Michael says, I am friends with someone, but I feel like we are in a relationship, even though she doesn't like me more than a friend. Any suggestions? There's been constant reassurance and compulsions. I mean, if she says that it's not a relationship, then I'd go with it's not a relationship. When you say you feel like you're in a relationship, I wonder what that means, because I'm always worried of that phrase, it feels like. You can use that phrase to describe anything. You know, Alexandra, by the fact that you just flicked your hair a little bit while I was talking there, it feels like to me that you hate me, actually, because people would only flick their hair while talking to me if they hated me. So it just feels like you really do dislike me, actually. And that's probably due to the fact that I smelled bad when I was sitting next to you when we were at the conference. I had a lot of beans for breakfast, the breakfast tacos, and I was probably farty a little bit. And so now I feel as if you hate me because of my smell. Is this true, Alex? Is this correct? Because it feels
Absolutely.
like it. It feels like it. So it must
Absolutely.
be. It must be right then, right?
And I'm only laughing like that. I'm not laughing because you were farting, because I don't recall any small farts. I would still like you regardless. That's just a little bit of reassurance.
Oh, yeah, that's
But
a
I'm
little reassuring.
laughing because it's truly describing, like, almost to a T, kind of my feels like intrusive thoughts, right? Where
Well, let's
I
hear it.
will I will, and this is actually tying right back to that kind of relationship subtype, sort of, I think, where, we are looking so hard, I do it, for signs of how a person may feel or what they may be thinking, that we begin to interpret these little, tiny, sort of irrelevant things as a sign that this person must like me, or maybe they must not like me, or maybe they feel this way about me, maybe they're mad at me. I'm so guilty of looking at my partner, and all he has to do is like sigh, and I go, are you mad at me? Did I do
Mm-hmm,
something wrong?
hmm.
Because it feels like I did, and it feels like you're angry with me. And he'll say, no, I'm just sitting here.
Hmm. Yeah,
He's
I'm
probably
I'm
just busy.
literally
Or
just sitting
maybe
here.
he's
Yeah,
farting, I don't know, and he's, like, sighing because he's farting, and it feels good.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes it does, by the way. Yes, yeah, sometimes it does. But so I'm always wary of any discussion I have with anyone that in the first few words says it feels like, right? Um, OCD jumps on it feels like and uses it as truth, but let's not confuse it feels like and truth, right? Let's look at it as potentially what it is, a bit of an OCD kind of ploy to get you to think or believe something.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think that it feels like is a slippery slope, and I am very suspicious of the "it feels like" statements in general. If I think something feels like something, I often will try to take a step back from it and defuse from that.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Hang on one second.
Hello, partner who farts a lot over there. Yeah, I'm calling him out right now. So,
Yes, that is the partner.
hello, farter, partner. I mean partner. I'm sorry. Now she's got to tell him that we used him as an example of tooting. So yeah, now we're gonna make him laugh. Just bring him on and let's introduce the man and see who he is. I'd love to say hello. Oh, she's not paying attention. So yeah. All right. Let's see. Nick says, how do I know if a thought is an OCD thought or if that's really how I feel? Oh, there you are.
Yes,
Thought we
I'm
lost you
back.
for a second.
No, no, you didn't lose me. How
Hello,
do I
partner.
know if a
I
thought is
apologize.
an OCD thought or if that's how I really feel? I mean, I think that this is kind of a trap. This
Mhm.
is the way I see it. I know that we can often know if something is OCD, or we think we know if something is urgent, or if we're spending a lot of time on it, or we feel like we have to figure it out right now. But a lot of times I like to just not even go there
Yeah.
and say to myself, if I'm having the thought that it may be OCD, I'm going to treat it like it's OCD, because otherwise I fall into that sort of spiral of trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And since OCD always loves the worst case scenario, it's never going to be OCD. It's always going to be, no, that's how you really feel. I've never once met anyone who was anything but, no, that's how I really feel in this situation. So, yeah. Any that grab you there at all?
I'm looking.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Let's see. How can you cope with thoughts of harming someone in your sleep, which I know is impossible?
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think, um, I mean, I'll let you answer it from a clinical perspective here in just a moment, but I think
Sure.
that how we cope with any thought, including thoughts of harming someone in our sleep, is by, how I cope is by allowing that thought to exist without judgment, and know that this is gonna sound so bad, but know that even if that worst case scenario were to happen, that I would cope with the consequences of that, and I would have to be okay with it, right? And I know that sounds really extreme, but I'll use myself an example. On the plane ride to, San Francisco, we encountered a lot of turbulence, like a lot,
Mm,
scary turbulence, and so, like, my little tray table was down because I was a bad flyer,
mhm.
and it was bouncing up and down like that, and I had the thought, "Oh my god, this is it. This is it. We're gonna die. I'm gonna die."
Mhm.
And then I leaned into that thought and I said, "Well, if I die, my son has a good father, and my funeral is going to be super kick ass." And
That's
I'm
true.
like, let me lean into that a little bit more and plan my funeral."
Hmm. There you
And
go.
I
How did
was
it go? Did you plan a good one?
I did plan a good one. It was a really awesome. There's good music. I
Hmm.
think that, we get into this erroneous, very rigid black and white thinking of, "Oh my gosh, if that were to happen, there's no way I'd be able to handle it." And that's where we kind of fall into that trap. If I were to harm someone in my sleep, I couldn't handle it, so now I'm not allowed to sleep.
Hmm.
But if we can look at it from the perspective of, as minor as the opportunity or as that chance is, I could handle it. It might be not fun, but I could handle it. I'm wondering what you think.
I agree, right? I love I can handle it. I may not like it and it may not be comfortable, but I can handle it. And handling it doesn't mean it's going to turn out well or great or anything like that, right? I mean, there's plenty of things that I've handled that I look back on and think in the end, well, I probably could have handled that better. I watched my wife die of cancer, and there were days that I did better as a spouse than other days. On the days that I wasn't awesome as a spouse, that I might have gotten frustrated or had a short fuse. How much should I beat myself up over the fact that there were days that I had a short fuse in the 6 years that she was sick, and that I wasn't probably the perfect spouse for that day? Do I beat myself up for 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25? What's the appropriate amount of time for not having been awesome and perfect at all times in all situations, right? Or am I allowed to be a human and have some grace in the fact that, yeah, you know what? We don't always perform to our peak performance on a daily basis, and maybe it's best if we recognize that we can learn things and move on and try to be better, but we aren't going to be the best on every single day, right?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that expecting ourselves to be the best every single day kinda sets us up for that, going right back into that OCD cycle.
Yeah. If I go see a band and I thought the show was awesome, but they say, I only give today about a 5, should I get my money back? Because it wasn't their 10 performance?
It would be nice if you could, but yeah, that's definitely not gonna happen.
Right. Right. That's not going to happen. Right.
No, and I
Now,
mean, the band's 10 performance might be amazing, but I'm sure their 8 or their 6 performance would be great as well, and we would never know
absolutely.
the difference, right?
The difference could be one or two notes missed. That's it. That in the grand scheme of the 3 hour show, no one probably even noticed, but they did because maybe they're so in tuned and something like that. Right. So. Kay says, going back to the what if statements or the I am statements, what if it's just a statement that's distressing? All right. So, Alex, by the end of this webinar, I'm going to take a bottle of alcohol that I have here, put a rag in it, light it on fire, and throw it at my neighbor's house. Then I'm going to go and take a dump in a paper bag and light it on fire. And I'm going to put it in front of my neighbor Josh's house. And then I'm going to ring the doorbell and play ding dong ditch. And he's going to come outside and see a flame outside of his house. He can step on it. And then he's going to have flaming poop on his shoe. And I'm going to laugh at him. And then I'm going to shoot a couple of geese that are flying over my house. And then I'm going to come back to the webinar. So that's going to happen by 26 minutes from now. So I'm just making that statement out there. It's not a I want to, it's not a what if or anything. I'm just making the statement that that's going to happen. And now let's see how much distress we should have about that and what the likelihood of it is occurring. Okay, fantastic. All right,
That sounds good to me.
let's move on and see what else we should do. What we got here?
So let's see. Oh my goodness. Did we do this one? Rumination. I constantly worry that I can't do my work or that it's never finished.
No, go ahead, take that one.
Yeah. I think this is one I've encountered with work. And I know it feels really hard to leave something and feel like it's not perfect or it's not perfectly finished.
Mhm.
But I think sometimes that's part of the way we interrupt that rumination cycle, right? So what I always like to shoot for is good enough. That sounds like it runs really counter to maybe what, not only OCD tells us, but what society tells us and what maybe our work may feel, we may feel pressure from them. But perfection is not necessarily always the goal, right? The goal is to do it
Uh,
and to do it good.
never, I will go with never is the goal.
Yeah. So I like to think of, busting rumination at work as this process of slowly allowing it to be good enough. Maybe look at that email one less time, two less times, three less times, and then practice writing an email if email is your thing, just once and sending it, or only checking over it one time. Finishing a project and then only checking over it once to make sure that it's, done correctly. Things like that. Because the truth is, if we're aiming for perfection, we could get stuck in a loop of checking things over and over again and working on them ad infinitum.
Yeah. I still haven't done a perfect webinar yet. I'm trying, but still haven't done one yet. Don't know that I ever will.
Yeah, I don't know that I ever will either.
Brian says OCD has given me good advice, and I've been satisfied with some answers to OCD. That's why it's confusing. A blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, and a broken clock is right twice a day. OCD tells you so many things that every now and then, well, it might have a nugget of some kind of small truth in it that it says to you, but the vast majority of time that OCD is espousing all of its crap to you, it's in general a non-reliable source of great truth, right? So I don't care who you like politically. You could take one line out of your opposite political party's best speech, and if I said it to you totally out of context of that speech, you would go, "That's a really good line." In fact, someone did this recently. For their high school graduation, they attributed a bunch of quotes that they had said in their speech to one certain president, and everybody cheered and said it was awesome and great. And then he said, "Just kidding. Those quotes were actually from the opposite president of what those people liked." And then everybody had egg on their face because they had now cheered for the quotes actually of a president they did not like. So, can OCD say something once in a while that you'll think, "Oh, that might work or be helpful"? Yeah, okay, sure, but maybe 0.01% of the time. Not a great reason to hold on to OCD as a thought leader and as a arbiter of truth in the life that you are living whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
That was perfect. I have nothing to add on that one.
Very
Let's see. My OCD hits the hardest when I am not at work on my days off. Ooh, unstructured time.
good. Tell us
Unstructured
about unstructured time.
unstructured time is like the friend of OCD, right? And I think that the reason that unstructured time can be so dangerous for us is because it gives us time to be alone with our thoughts, which can lead to ruminating, right? I know that for me, I used to be very much sort of allergic to being alone with my thoughts. I didn't like to do anything mindful. So, no meditation, no yoga, no laying in bed peacefully, because as soon as I slowed down and stopped moving, especially if I was tired, I would just start ruminating nonstop, right? And that OCD voice got really, really loud. Um, I think that one way we can sort of approach this is to give our days off a little bit more structure.
Mhm.
And so I don't like to overly schedule my time, right? Because that's probably going to be compulsive, right? Just avoiding.
Yeah.
But maybe, if I have a day off, planning something fun for myself, planning something that I'm looking forward to doing, whether it's visiting a friend or getting out in my garden or, connecting with another one of my values, anything like that. But also allowing time to sit with those thoughts and sit with that distress a little bit and allowing myself to learn how to be with yeah, you're yawning and I'm feeling it.
Sorry, it's both of
Learning
us are
to be
exhausted. Yes, so yeah, it's not
it's
you, believe me.
it's weirdness, but, learning to be with those thoughts.
Mhm.
But yes, I really do think that I'm not sure of the mechanics behind that, but unstructured time is definitely something that you are
No,
not
I
alone in.
OCD likes to monopolize anything. So if you're tired, you might find that your OCD has a stronger grip on you than when you're more awake. You might find that unstructured time is when OCD grabs you because there's less distractions or things. So OCD tries to fill the void. Absolutely, that's things that you would see. I got a great one for you, Alex. This is from Shyla. Why doesn't logic, reasoning, and reassurance work when we have an OCD attack?
Say that one more time.
Why doesn't logic, reasoning, and reassurance work when we have an OCD attack? I knew you would chuckle at that one. So,
Why do why do they not work? It's funny how OCD tricks us into believing that these things are going to work. We
mhm.
think that if we just get that little bit of reassurance, or if we just can find that logical explanation, or we can sort of almost reassure ourselves that we can get OCD to stop, that we're going to give it that little bit of information that it needs to go, "Oh, okay, I see now. Well, all right, I'm going to stop pestering you." But the truth is, OCD will stop at nothing because it's looking for complete certainty. And there is nothing in life that is 100% certain, except maybe the fact that eventually we're all going to die. And I'm even starting to question that, right? With science.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen? I liken this to scrupulosity. So, in scrupulosity of religious scrupulosity, it's maybe a fear you've done something to offend a higher power. You won't go into whatever salvation you believe or something. And I've always said your deity could show up in our session and say to you, "Hey, all's well. You are saved for salvation. You will enjoy all the greatness of an afterlife." Your first reply would be, "Are you sure?"
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Are you
Right?
sure?
So there's just not enough logic or reasoning or reassurance to give someone with OCD for OCD to believe what they're saying is ultimately true or real or fair or whatever it is. Um, Otherwise, the people who did more compulsions would be better than the people who did less compulsions.
Yeah.
Because the more compulsions you get, the more reassurance you get, the more you feel comforted of having neutralized the obsession. And all you would need to do would be to go online and search enough papers and read enough articles and be like, okay, now I have all the answers, which everyone with OCD has done, if that's their thing, and has still never felt once in the history of OCD that they have enough information. You know why? Because the doubting disorder never accepts a complete answer. You know
Yeah.
why? Because it doubts every answer it's given.
It
You
literally
can't
does everything.
you can't give enough reason to OCD. Just like you can't fill a bucket that doesn't have a bottom on it because all the water just goes through it.
And I'd say that that's the case with our kind of worst case scenarios too, where our worst fear comes true. We think that once we get through that worst fear, I know I did, that our OCD will stop bothering us. So if we can
Man.
just grasp onto that little bit of, reassurance, okay, well, the worst thing happened now, so I'm going to be good. That's not true. OCD just finds the next thing to latch onto.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing a ton of questions around avoidance.
Okay.
And let's see.
Pick one.
This one is moving now. I'm having a hard time keeping up with the comments because they keep
Oh,
moving.
there's so many of them. And thank you, everyone, for all the comments tonight. These are great. And I love the fact that everybody supports themselves in the comments, too, that they're so supportive of each other and everything.
It's amazing.
Great for community right there.
So I saw some about avoidance. I saw one about ignoring a feeling in a constructive way versus ignoring so that the feeling goes away. How can I ensure I'm being constructive? So I'd say it's kind of two sides of the same coin, right? Like avoidance is a compulsion. It can be, right? When we are actively avoiding things in order to not trigger ourselves, when we are actively avoiding things in order to not feel uncomfortable, to not feel disgust, even when we're actively avoiding feelings that we are kind of judging as bad or feelings that we don't have, that can be really compulsive. And if we're trying to distinguish between ignoring a feeling in a constructive way versus ignoring it so that the feeling goes away, I would ask you, how do you ignore feelings in a constructive way? Because a lot of mindfulness and sort of a lot of moving through our emotions and being able to defuse from these thoughts and emotions in a constructive way actually requires us to allow them to exist and to allow ourselves to feel them.
I've got an idea on this one. Instead of avoiding, what if we were to acknowledge and move on?
Yeah.
I don't need to avoid, the fact that I'm tired. Neither do you. We can acknowledge it. We both have. And now we're moving on and we're doing the webinar. But I could have intrusive thoughts about, oh, but you're tired, which means that you might not be on your A game, which means that you might not give the best answers that you possibly could. And you've got over 100 people who have joined this webinar to listen to you and get your wisdom. And now you're not giving them the A game that they deserve. And these fine people have used their time and their energy to listen to you spout some crap because you're tired. How dare you be tired and do this webinar? How dare you not have figured out a flight that was better on the way home from San Francisco to where you live so that you could have been even more rested now? And you really do owe all of these people a very sincere apology. So you'll have to write and text each of them to apologize for the fact that you could have been better than you were tonight had you been 100% more awake than you were. But no, you had to be Mr. I've got to do a webinar because I love my face on YouTube. And that's just the way that it is, because I'm all about me. And what a selfish jerk I am for doing such a thing. And boy, does that sound like what OCD might run through in someone's head there, Alex? What do you think?
150%. And that's actually why at the beginning of things like live streams or live panels, I like to acknowledge when I'm feeling a little bit anxious or when I'm not feeling my best, not as a confessing compulsion, but as an exposure, because I'm going to acknowledge how I feel and then I'm going to move forward and give it my best regardless. So even if I am tired, you know what? I'm going to say that I did my best in that moment. I'm not going to put myself down for being tired. Maybe I'm not hanging on to every thought the way I'd like to or as quick on the uptake as I'd like to be. But I'm still going to do my best, and I'm not going to avoid the fact that I'm tired. I'm just going to roll with it.
Yeah.
And yes, y'all, I'm definitely getting more delirious as this goes on. It's really sad.
Man, that must mean that you're not going to be good for your family tonight as well, too.
Oh my gosh, yes, probably.
Yeah, you're a horrible partner and mother and all those things. Just so you know.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
feel, sometimes I feel that way. Sometimes I feel that work takes away from my family. And how do I handle that? And sometimes I feel that, doing things like this, I mean, I got off a plane, came home, took a shower and ate, and here I am on the webinar.
Yeah.
And I could shame myself for being a bad mom, or I could say, you know what? I'm doing the best in this moment with what I have.
Mm-hmm.
Am I in psychosis?
I love it. Yeah. Great question.
Yes,
I love, thank you, Amber.
absolutely. When am I not in psychosis? I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty much my default
Both of us.
MO.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
we've got some stuff about depersonalization. Would you like to?
Sure. So depersonalization, probably one of the most significant kind of defenses that the brain could put up when dealing with a very difficult situation, to detach from the body or the feelings that we're having, and to be outside of oneself. Uh, Now, treatable, right? Very, that's the thing. Many people look at depersonalization or derealization, or maybe even psychosis, like we have there, as things that would just be the absolutely worst things to ever happen at all whatsoever. Um, but but again, they are treatable things. There's fantastic medications that we have available now for helping to manage psychosis, and we can use interoceptive exposures for derealization or depersonalization, and those are bodily sensation exposures, so things like hyperventilating or spinning in a chair or something of that nature. And we can teach people to not be afraid of those feelings anymore. So many people will do all sorts of things to try to avoid any kind of feeling of being derealized or depersonalized. And so why not make that the subject of exposure and response prevention therapy then, and show people, hey, guess what? You can handle the sensations of derealization or depersonalization, and you don't need to run away from those experiences. And it's not going to be overwhelming and harmful to you if you were to feel those things. And let's teach you that you can handle them in such a way that even if they do happen, they won't be so overwhelming to you, and you'll learn that you can handle it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of times we fixate on these very kind of normal bodily experiences, right? Um, Everyone experiences depersonalization or derealization to some extent. We all dissociate at some point. The famous example of driving your car and like getting in your car to go home.
I had that today when I had to drive this morning. I had to wake up. I was tired as crap, and I had to get somewhere. And I got there and go, how the hell did I get here? I don't even remember how I got here.
Yeah, I do
And
that
then if I had
all the
OCD, it would
time.
be like, oh my gosh, what if I ran somebody over and I didn't even know that I did it? Because maybe now that I forgot it, maybe I also missed while I was driving and all sorts of things too. And I can go down all sorts of rabbit holes with that as well.
Or if you're me, apparently you're just gonna be like, "Oh, well, I'm just psychotic, so it's okay."
Hmm. That's okay. Yeah. Hmm.
But, I think we tend to fixate on these on these obsessions, on these sensations, and on these very normal human experiences. And the truth is, we're all going to derealize, depersonalize at some point. And I think interoceptive exposures, like you said, can be really helpful in learning to sort of go, oh my gosh, okay, this really is just a feeling or a sensation. It's not dangerous. It's not going to hurt me. I can cope with it.
Yeah. I just want to announce I've got 6 minutes left to leave this webinar, throw a Molotov cocktail at my neighbor Dave's house, put a lighted bag of poop in front of my neighbor Josh's house, and shoot 3 geese. So 6 more minutes, just to let everybody know. There's some questions about anafranil or clomipramine. It still has very good results for obsessive compulsive disorder, it appears. And it's not usually a drug though that people start with, because it's a tricyclic antidepressant, meaning that it hits 3 neurotransmitters instead of one, which means that it can have more potential for side effects, and therefore that's not usually what they start with. But if you've tried some SSRIs and haven't seen the results, you people can then typically go into more of the tricyclics and try anafranil or clomipramine.
Yeah,
Amber says not the geese, by the way. No, Amber, there's a lot of geese. They poop all over the place. So
ew,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
nasty.
Mm.
Yeah, so How does one do ERP for the more taboo thoughts and images? I am not afraid of acting on them, but that they are how I truly feel, especially with groinals. I don't want to think the thoughts. Yeah, I understand not wanting to think the thoughts. I think that when we get to that point of not wanting to think them, we may actually start trying to push them away,
Mhm.
which can make them come on stronger, right? And be actually more numerous. What I like to do for taboo thoughts and images is mindful acceptance or mindful disengagement. So I will allow myself to experience the thought or image. I will acknowledge that it's existing in my brain. I will acknowledge that I don't like it and that it's really crappy to have a brain that gets stuck on these images. And then I like to mindfully turn towards something that I value in a very intentional manner. So if I'm having a thought about, hey, I really want to suck my son's dick while I'm changing his diaper, which can happen. I mean,
Mhm.
I know it sounds really crass to say that, but it's true. Then I will change his diaper regardless because that's what I
Mhm.
need to do as a mom. And then mindfully turn to something that I value, like connecting with him by playing.
Excellent. And that's I, I couldn't give you better advice than what you just gave everybody right there. I mean, absolutely 100%. You show a good old fu to your OCD when it throws something like that. Oh yeah, OCD. Well, take this. Here's me changing my child and purposely playing with them. So you thought that thought was going to, or that image or urge was going to get me to stop and stay away from them. Not going to happen, because there are people who have taken that to extremes. I treated someone who did not touch their child for the first 6 months of their child's life out of fear of, what if I were to molest my child?
Yeah.
And she had her mother come live with her, and her husband and mother took care of the child, and she did not literally touch her child for the first 6 months, all because OCD was saying to her, but you might molest him. Could
And
happen.
gosh, that makes me so sad, but it's so relatable, right? Because that happens a lot of the time. We want to avoid the thing that feels so scary or so
Mhm.
real.
Yeah.
And I just want to address the groinals very quickly. I think with groinals, it's the same thing, right? Just allowing those groinals to exist. I mean, it may feel a little funny, but the groinal is not harmful, it's not dangerous, and it is simply another bodily sensation. And when we try to dive into why we're having that groinal, a lot of times we're just feeding into that thought.
Mhm. We're coming up on the end here. I always love to give our guest an opportunity to have the last minute or two and just give a message of hope to people out there. And how did you get to where you're at today? And what would be some advice you might get to others to get there as well too?
Yeah, I mean, the road to, I guess, recovery, and I put recovery in quotation marks because I don't really think of recovery as a fixed endpoint. I think of it more as a continuing journey. And so I don't think we ever get to recovery. We simply get to a place where we're living a fulfilling and meaningful life alongside OCD.
Mhm.
Um, I would commit to the treatment. Commit to the treatment and know that it's a long journey. And, for some folks, it's 8 months. For some folks, it's less. For some people like me, it's way longer. It takes years. But when we commit to the journey and we put in the work to make ERP a daily practice, we can get to the point where OCD no longer feels so much like a bully or a monster, but just, as my former therapist would say, burp, fart, or hiccup. It's just something that is there. It pops up sometimes. We go, oh, wow, I just farted. And then we move on.
There we go. Well, I'll tell you what. I really thank you tonight for being with us and chatting, and even in both of our tired states. It's been awesome, and I hope we'll have you again in the future.
Aw, thank you, Dr. McGrath. I hope you have a beautiful evening. Go get some rest.
Yes, you too. And once again, everyone, OCDSUD.org is the special interest group for the International OCD Foundation for the obsessive compulsive disorder and substance use disorders special interest group. So until next month for this one, we'll see you then. And I'll see all of you again on Wednesday. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks.